Hi, I'm Reba Hervis, Artistic Director at Overshadowed Theatrical Productions. Welcome to this week's episode, From the Wings. I have with us today Rebecca Leland, as usual. Thank you, Rebecca, for being here. And we have a special guest this time with us. This is Anna Brown. Anna interviewed me during COVID because she had an article that was how theaters were affected during the pandemic. Is that kind of what it was, if I remember correctly? And so that all along I've been aware of her career in journalism. And so I thought it would be really interesting to hear what she has to share about those skills and why she picked it and what she does in her life. So, Anna, if you'll just tell us a little bit about your job first so that everybody can understand.
I work for a daily news program called The World and Everything in It. It is part of World News Group, which we have a print magazine, a digital platform, and then also a daily news podcast. Wow. I specifically edit our feature segment, so those are the human interest stories, which could be something as serious as a profile of an investigator who is trying to crack down on prostitution in California and get girls out of the sex industry. Or it could be something really lighthearted, like a historical European martial arts club where they gather every week and they study ancient sword fighting techniques from the Middle Ages.
Wow. Yeah. So how did you get interested in this, and what kind of was your path as a person to land you at this moment?
I was zigging and zagging. I explicitly said in high school, I do not want to be a journalist. I loved writing, but
That's crazy.
I was very much into creative writing. I did it for fun. I didn't want to do it for a job. I think I had 7 part-time jobs at one point. I was like tutoring and writing.
1 + 1. I can live off of this, right?
Yeah. And then I had grown up around World Magazine. My parents always had a subscription. And so my mom saw an ad for World Journalism Institute. And it's a free 2-week course for college students or just post-grad to come and get basically like intensive journalism boot camp. Wow. And I was like, okay, it's free. I'll do it. So I applied. I got accepted. And I fell in love with writing for radio. Wow. Specifically radio, which is different than writing for print because, well, especially coming off of all of my college courses, I was an English major. You're writing long papers and you're padding your word count. You know, like you're trying to put in as many adjectives as possible and bulk it up so that it hits your, your requirements. It's the opposite in radio specifically.
Because every second counts, so you have to like streamline it, right?
Yeah. Well, and also you're going to voice it, and a listener is going to hear it once, and that's the only chance that they have to really grasp what you're trying to convey. Yeah. With print, you can go back and you can reread the sentence before, and if you didn't, and digest it more. So you can pack a lot more information into a sentence in print.
Well, and what's really cool is that you're very natural with how you sound and how you express yourself, and you're not afraid of the microphone, which I'm getting better, but when we first started this, whenever anybody put a microphone in front of me, it was like, oh my goodness, I'm like, all of a sudden now I cannot talk because that thing scares me to death. Like, do you think this is just something you're content with this part of the job and you'll just stay there for a long time, or is there a place you want to go and do? Like, because you said you like creative writing, so is there something else, you know?
I've been trying to do more creative writing. It is hard when you're on your computer writing for work all day. It's hard to just kind of, okay, now I'm going to sit on my computer more and write for the creative outlet. So, but I have been trying to do more of that.
Next question. Do you have a favorite interview that you ever did? Like, you got to go X place and meet so and so. Like, is there anything that just really was like, I still think about that and I loved it?
A couple different, like very different answers to that. So not because I have interviewed anybody famous or anything like that. The interviews that really stand out to me are either ones that I just personally really enjoy, like the historical European martial arts story that I did. That was just fun for me because I'm a nerd, and so I enjoyed that. But the ones that I still will think about are stories. I went to Sutherland Springs, Texas, a year after they had a mass shooting at this tiny little church, like 50 people. And a gunman came in and killed 27, 28.
Wow.
So it was over half of this tiny little church. And I wasn't even full time with World at this point. Wow. Like, this was one of my first assignments.
Yeah.
So they sent me down there on the year anniversary to talk to people about the worst day of their lives.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember I kept it together in the interviews, which were just heart-wrenching. Like, I kept it together in the interviews. And then afterward, like a couple days later, I called my family and I was just talking with them and debriefing things. And I just choked up and could not speak because it was like hitting me, that secondary, really some of those stories about the little ones, like an 18-month-old that was killed. And yet their testimony to God's faithfulness and the healing that he was doing in their community was just so beautiful. So those are the stories that I will still think about every once in a while, especially with little ones now of my own. And just hope that I was able to convey their story well and do them justice. So that responsibility will sometimes really, it can be kind of a weight at times.
Wow.
So
I feel so heavy with that moment right now. I don't even think I can move on, but that's really beautiful. You express that just so heart-wrenchingly, really. So, so I think, honestly, that answer pretty well leads into our next question. Why is what you do important?
I never liked news before I started working for World. I thought it was kind of depressing or just kind of pointless because there's always another headline. There's always something else to be reading. And so I think specifically the journalism that we do at World is really important because, we'll cover headlines, but we'll also tell stories of just ordinary people who are doing God's work. And we want to highlight what they're doing and what God is doing through them, and also encourage other people through their stories to go out and do the same. We've heard from people who are like, hey, I heard about so-and-so and their ministry on your program, and now I want to go and start a similar ministry.
Wow.
And so that's really inspiring. But then also, it's just really important to have biblical truth out there. It's so interesting because I'll read AP and BBC and The Guardian and all of that as I'm doing some of my reporting, and just to see the language that they use and the terminology and how you really can, without explicitly saying something, shape how your viewers are or your readers are perceiving a story. Yeah. And so I think having the Bible as your source of truth really changes everything about how you approach reporting.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that shows really well into what is something you can tell our viewers just through all the experiences that you have gotten as a journalist. Like, what is like a really big lesson you have gotten, or something that you learned or you've been able to see that you could share with us?
Yeah. Pay attention to the words that a reporter is using.
That's so good.
Just like, if you look for bias, you will find it. Like, compare different news sources and see what kind of the common threads are. And this comes out especially with politics, where you'll say political candidate A claimed without evidence this. And whether you agree with the claim or not, like, you can tell that the reporter doesn't agree with the claim because they've inserted this modifier to make sure that you as the reader are doubting what the candidate has said. And that's true of, multiple things and multiple topics, and not just one side or the other. But it's really interesting once you start looking for some of that slanted language, you'll start seeing it. Wow. And I just think it's really important to be aware. I'm not saying don't listen to certain news outlets. I think it's really important to get your news from multiple sources, but just be really aware as you're doing it.
Would you say there is no unbiased journalism? Because I think you would say you are biased because you believe in Jesus Christ and whatever we're saying, so it's our point of view. So it really isn't.
Yeah, no, we're just upfront about our bias.
Love that.
It's based on the Bible.
Yeah.
So, but that's so great because people know, like, because no matter what your news source is, they all have their platform, right? They all do. And some of them are more liberal and some are more conservative, but I would want mine based on who God is and the Word of God. So I think that is just so fantastic, so encouraging. So what do you have any advice for somebody who says, oh, I love to write?
It really depends on what you're interested in writing. Like if you're interested in TV or radio or print, there will be slightly different routes for that. I mean, obviously the go-to advice is just start doing it.
Right.
We heard that a lot at WJI, or the Journalism Institute that I went to, was just like start writing things and send them to local papers and see what they think and get edited. And you can pitch things to lots of different people and get lots of different feedback, and that's what'll help you grow.
Yeah.
Even if it's scary.
Even if it's scary.
Which it is.
If you don't start, you never go, right?
That was so good.
That was so good. I was thinking, my inner monologue was going, at the end of the year when people ask me what my favorite episodes are, I'm going to say that this is one of my favorite. It was so good,
and we wanted
Anna.
To for probably a year. Like we've talked, we're like, we have to have Anna on. Like she's so well spoken and she has so much to share, and this was so sweet.
Yeah, it was so good. Thank you so much for all your wisdom, and we'll have to have you on again for an update, like for your news stories and what the new baby brings and all that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for being here today. It was so fascinating.
Thank you.
So now you guys have two chores. Like we want you to check out World Magazine, and we want you to listen to their podcast, which we already said we'll link below. But also, we want you to think about the things that Anna shared with us, especially when you're hearing reports, to investigate, what words they use and what their platform of bias might be, because it's so important to us as we're formulating how our reaction should be. To see if we have been manipulated into thinking certain things. So that's your other one. And your next responsibility is to follow us. Until next time, this is just me.
And me.
And me.
Talking to you from the wings.